Hey, y'all. Hey. So, today we are talking about why stillness is so hard for so many Black women, including myself, and how it's not just about your personality, but it's actually rooted in your childhood. And it's also coming up for many of us right now in this political sphere. I know for me, I realized that I have been groomed to live in an intense situation, from my childhood to being a single mom to living in poverty to living in a world crisis right now. I think many of us walk around feeling either one, emotionally numb, or we are emotionally conditioned to go towards emotional peaks as often as we can as a way to get back to our baseline of just experiencing life as always being intense. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about those of us who are craving chaos and overreaction, those of us that are underreacting because we're so used to chaos, we're so used to not having stillness that when something does happen that requires us or is asking us to be intense, it becomes extremely uncomfortable. And I want to talk about how we can recover from that. But even more so than how we can recover from that, I want to talk about where it comes from. And really being able to see that in our astrology charts. Y'all know that I have been studying astrology, numerology, and tarot for over a decade or almost a decade at this point. And one of the things I love about it is it just helps you to be self-aware. It helps you to understand yourself more and more, and it gives you affirmation in regards to what you're dealing with in your life. And so if you are a person, so if you have your astro chart, now's a good time to pull it up. If you don't, go to astrocharts.com and get your free astro chart. But if you are a person that has heavy leanings in your chart towards Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio, you have to know that during your childhood, especially if you were an American raised within a Western context, during your childhood, there is likely a chance that you became hardwired for intensity and specifically for emotional intensity. Because anybody who knows Pisces, Scorpio, Cancer knows that these are heavily emotional people. And the beauty of astrology is you realize that you are not one sign, right? You are made up of many signs. Like from a sun sign perspective, I'm a Sagittarius, a fire sign, a creative sign, a person who loves intensity. But my IC is in Pisces, and I'm also a sidereal Scorpio. And so that means that in my childhood, how I experienced emotions was oftentimes in Pisces. I'm going to break each one down. Was oftentimes when things got emotionally heavy, I went inwards and I created for myself my own world. So anybody that knows Pisces knows that Pisces is the dreamer of the zodiac. They are very intensely emotional. They are the criers. They are the people who can feel all the things. But what most people don't understand about Pisces is that Pisces oftentimes understands everything from the perspective of itself. It is literally drawing energy into itself because it is so receptive. I always say Pisces is water and water. Cancer is water and fire, and Scorpio is like water and earth. And so with water and water, you're just super receptive. So if you're IC, which we've talked about the IC and the MC all week long, which is the IC goes all the way from the IC MC line goes from the top of your astrological chart to the bottom. Even if you have your moon in Pisces or your rising sign is in Pisces, or if Neptune is in Pisces, you are super receptive, which means that when you take all of other people's emotions in, you internalize it, and you tend to go into your own dreamscape. And what happens when you do that as a Pisces, as a Scorpio, as a Cancer, is that you basically develop a baseline for your life that is rooted in emotional intensity. So if you're a Scorpio, what it means is that oftentimes when you're engaging with other people, and if you have experiences where it is very emotionally intense, you tend to take the emotion into your body. So that's why oftentimes you'll find your Tauruses, your Scorpios, because Taurus is the other side of Scorpio. When they are experiencing emotionally intense situations, they tend to put on a lot of weight. And so that is the way because that is the way they are absorbing those emotions. Because with the water sign, Pisces, Scorpio, Cancer, You can't help but take in the emotions, like they're coming in. The question is, where are you going to store them at? For Pisces, Pisces tends to store them in their mind. For Scorpio tends to store it in its body. And for Cancer just stores it right in the emotional space. And so what happens is we build up over time this baseline of just emotional intensity. So just imagine you're a kid, right? And this is for specifically for people who have an IC in Scorpio, Cancer, or Pisces, that line that goes from the top of your chart to the bottom of your chart. If you look at that line and the cusp of it is on Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, then when you were a child, let's think back to being a kid, right? You're sitting in your house and your mom comes in the house and she's like, wash these dishes right now. That's intensity. The next thing that happens, maybe you don't have a lot of food in the house. And so then you're like, I want sugar, I want sugar, I want sugar. Sugar is what you have to eat. That's intensity. And then maybe you're dealing with an abusive situation. And then that's even more intensity. Maybe the people in your house are always yelling all the time. That's even more intensity. And so what happens over time is that when you experience situations where there is stillness, where there is peace, where there is joy, where there ain't nothing to just holler about, you don't know how to deal with it. You perceive it as being unsafe because it is so far away from your emotional baseline. And so in this current political climate, that is what many of us are experiencing, because some of us, if you're like me, over time it made me become emotionally numb because my IC is in Pisces. And so that means that when things are happening, sometimes I just like, it's really much easier for me to ignore it than it is for me to actually be up in it, or to at least, in the very least, like take it into myself and create some type of dream world around it. And this is what happens when you have Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio heavy in your chart. It's almost like if you haven't learned how to deal with the emotion, then you have to find a place to put it at, because it can actually be overwhelming. And what happens is when we are in experiences where there is stillness, where there is safety, we don't know what to do with that, because it's like you have to develop a whole new paradigm in order to be able to just manage not having the emotional intensity. And you actually start to crave the chaos. And so, what do we do about this? What do we do about the fact that many of us have normalized violation? We've normalized numbness. We've normalized the need to always constantly protect ourselves and not to, have peaceful situations. And I think the answer is self-inquiry. At least for me, it is. So you need to ask yourself some questions and then journal about them and figure out, where does your baseline for emotional intensity sit? Because some people's is like really, really high. So they like want to wreck their world when they're in peace. And then there's some people that are just like, I'm going to eat 5 cookies a day until I've gained 20 pounds and now I got high blood pressure. So there's a couple of questions you can ask yourself. When you see something happening, or you're experiencing an emotional trigger, do you freeze, do you fawn, or do you implode? Those of us who freeze are those of us who, like I said, you might go into your world and create a dream world for yourself. And it's just like, that's not happening. I don't know what to do with that. Those of us who fawn over it are those of us who, right now, we're seeing a lot of these people on social media. They're like, I'm going to basically follow this situation everywhere. I'm going to have a response to everything. I'm going to make sure I meet emotional intensity with more emotional intensity. And then you have those of us who explode, which just means you become totally and completely irrational because you don't know what to do. You don't know how to get back to a level of emotional safety. The second question you can ask yourself is your spirit reacting, or are your childhood wounds responding when you get yourself into an emotionally intense situation? So when your spirit is reacting, it just means that you start to think logically about the situation and you start to develop a plan and a process for how you're going to overcome the emotional intensity. When your childhood wounds are responding, then what's essentially happening is you do one of those things. You freeze, you fawn, or you explode. The last question you can ask yourself is, what would it feel like to respond from a place of softness and grounded clarity, not urgency or pain? So if you could stop in that moment of experiencing the emotional intensity and you could actually respond from a place of softness and groundedness, what would it actually look like? And I think The difficult thing is in the moment, knowing that you are having an emotionally intense peaked moment and then being able to ground yourself enough to ask these questions. And it can definitely be very, very difficult. But I think the most important thing to realize when you recognize that you are, in fact, having an emotionally intense reaction on a constant, consistent basis to most of the things in your life is to realize that you are not broken, right? You are not, there is not something wrong with you, and that you do actually deserve stillness and peace in your life. You deserve to feel peace in your body, in your mind, in your heart, in your spirit. And just because you had a childhood that was rooted in very intense narratives does not mean that you deserve a nervous system that cannot react appropriately. So, if you, in fact, know that you are in a space or you're currently recognizing that you have emotionally intense reactions anytime you feel safe, anytime you feel still, anytime life becomes mundane or routine, drop me just something in the comments. You could drop a heart, you could drop anything in the comments just to let me know that I am not alone. Because, like I said, this is something I'm dealing with. And I always tell y'all, I never speak from the perspective of something I haven't experienced. If I haven't experienced it or gone through it, I don't want to talk about it because I don't know shit about it, for real, for real. But if I have, I'm going to tell y'all about it. I'm going to talk to y'all about it. And like I said, my IC is in Pisces. And so this was an experience that I had in my childhood. It's just when emotional intensity struck, I didn't know what to do about it. So I oftentimes made up my own world in order to be able to deal with it. And so don't forget, no matter where one of those water signs is sitting in your chart, it is affecting you on some level. Like I said, for some people, it's a very small level. And then for some of us, where we have it in a major place, like our sun, our moon, our rising, our IC, our midheaven, then it affects us more whenever there is emotional intensity or whenever we're responding to emotionally intense situations. But you can download your personal moon guide, which can help you figure out where your moon is, because the moon is a place of emotion for all of us. And how we respond to emotion oftentimes is exactly what our moon sign says it is. So you can do that at bit.ly/decode my 2025. All right, y'all. It was nice talking to y'all today. I'm going to be going live every day at 9 a.m. I'm changing my time after today. I'm going to go live at 9 a.m. for the next 7 days. And I'm actually going to be unpacking this whole thing around emotional intensity and softness and stillness. And I'm going to be relating it back to the astrology chart. Because I think that that's where, for me, that's where the value in astrology, numerology, tarot, that's where it all lies. It all lies in our ability to understand ourselves better, so that we can show up in the ways that are most healthy and most productive for us. All right, y'all. Have a great day. I will talk to y'all later. Peace.